Hello there, this is Rom Wills coming back at you with yet another podcast. Take care of your mental health. Take care of your mental health. Now, this is weird. I started the video, I must have hit a bump or something, and this thing like turned off. So I'm going to have to do this again. But before I even go further, let me make sure y'all got me right. I couldn't off the top of my head. Before I go further, I want to shout out C Boogie. Because C Boogie is somebody who stays on top of this mental health thing. And a lot of men, but men and women, whoever's watching this, going across all races, need to really look into their mental health. Because if you're talking about relationships or just really functioning in life, a lot of people's problems extend to or come from just having some mental health issues that have been unaddressed. And you can't really do anything with it. And a lot of people don't realize the extent of mental health. Now, I don't necessarily talk about things I used to do, but I'll share this. It's not under any confidentiality agreement, but I spent some time at the disability rights section with the United States Department of Justice in the Civil Rights Division. And one thing I learned there is that there are a lot of people out here who have what I would call they functionally mentally ill. By functionally mentally ill, it means they are functional enough to hold a job, or at least somewhat of a job, work, live by themselves and everything. A lot of times we might think of mental illness as maybe some homeless person or somebody can't take care of themselves. No, but you have a whole lot of have people some level of mental illness who they out here every day, they going to work, everything like that. And this, even though I say this for everybody, this is especially for black men listening. Especially for black men listening. No shade against anybody, any other gender or any other race of men, but there's a lot of black men out here going through some mental health issues. Because one thing with women in general, they'll go to a therapist like it's nothing. As a group, they'll go to a therapist, counselor, whatever, like it's nothing. It's almost like it's nothing to hear a professional woman having discussions with a therapist. That's normal. In fact, I've done reviews of the shows She's Gotta Have It and Insecure on here. And on both shows, you had a woman in therapy. But see, you don't see that as much with men. You don't see that as much with men. And a whole lot of men, we'll talk about this whole select, non-select thing, but actually on both sides you can have an issue. Because if you get a man who's non-select, who's faced nothing but constant rejection since he was little, that's going to affect his mental thing. Now, I know sometimes I can say something against a non-select person, but, I try. For the most part, I try not to, I try to understand where they're coming from and where the animosity is coming from. Even like sometimes in some of these comments and stuff, or watching some of these channels, or certain groups, that's mental illness. Or even with the incels, a lot of these guys, that's a mental illness to think that you're so hideous. Like, you look at the guys and you look like everybody else. That's a mental illness. That's a mental illness. That's a mental health thing. Because that's a low self-esteem thing. Now I had a woman dear to me point out something about myself. It wasn't a bad thing. She just said, you know what, Ron, you come off as just very cocky and self-confident. And I just laughed about it, because one of the things was always faced head on any mental health issues. I've never been in therapy or anything, but if anything was pointed out to me, or I saw how any of my thoughts were detrimental to me doing the things I wanted to do, I addressed it. If I had a bad habit, I addressed it. But see, you got a lot of people out here, they don't address it. Because first of all, it's hard to address your own stuff, because it's hard for you to see yourself. One blessing I had in life is, and I told this to the young lady when I was speaking with her, my grandmother had taught me to really listen when people tell you about yourself. To really listen and consider, even if I don't like it. So, I always confronted it, but everybody didn't have that same thing. You know, people who may have been, you know, you get a lot of guys who were rejected harshly, like in grade school, high school, and then make it up to their 40s, 50s, 60s, and it was never addressed. And they still reacting to that initial aggression. You know, a lot of psychologists and therapists, they'll talk about that inner child. New agers, they'll talk about that inner child. But a lot of people's inner child has never been healed. It's never been dealt with. And I would say to a lot of people, like, you got to look yourself in the mirror. I mean, there's no shame. And let me make that abundantly clear. There's no shame. Shoot. This whole damn culture is mentally ill. This whole damn culture, seriously. And then you got people trying to exploit it. So they ain't really trying to heal anybody. Psychologists, if you pay, or psychiatrists, the whole industry, if you paying for their Mercedes and their big old houses, they ain't going to actually do something to help you heal. They going to just keep you functional enough to keep working, be a worker bee. But even with that, if you got to talk with them for a little while, that could be helpful, because it can spark something within you to get some help. And, you know, it don't necessarily even have to be, they don't necessarily have to be a therapist. You know, some people can't afford it, or, you know, have any type of thing. Talk it out with somebody. Talk it out with somebody who's going to listen and is going to give you, you know, first, they sympathetic. They ain't going to put you down, say, oh, you just crazy or something. In fact, we need to stop using that word crazy. You know, if somebody was like dying of cancer or something where they were having some visible physical ailments, we wouldn't mess with them or something. So we have to do it, and I have to do it. I have to be conscious of even using that word, because that's just as dangerous. You know, I spoke on that those incel shootings a few weeks ago. That's a mental health thing. I mean, you know, we're talking about the guns, but there's millions of people who got guns who would never use them except in self-defense. But you got to have some mental illness to feel like you hate the world, so you want to interfere with someone else's life. And a lot of guys got to do that. That's why some guys get jealous of somebody for no reason. You know, I was talking about, you know, dudes going in on select men. I can guarantee there's some mental health issues on anybody who's going to do that. And just to be clear, like I was going to say earlier, they ain't just some non-select men. I've known, I'm going to tell you what, with my book Nice Guys and Players, I've said, like, the biggest supporters have been guys who on the surface didn't look like they needed the book. But what I found with them was they were going through some issues. Yeah, they were some guys thinking just because a man's getting sex, you know, everything hokey-dory. It's like, no, you can have some craziness there too. You can have a lot of craziness there. Or there could be some craziness just doing what you do. You got some guys out here on some reckless ass shit. Yeah, they getting to play, but then they doing dangerous stuff. And, you know, they might be carrying something. Shit. It's a mental illness to, like, have some venereal disease or STD. I'm showing my age. Some STD or something, and then voluntarily, like, knowingly give it to people. That's a mental illness. Or just to do some of the drama or get involved. That can grate on you in a while. So a lot of people just need, and in fact, I had a couple of dudes that other people would look up and say, man, he a player. He getting all these women in there all day. They talked to me privately and said, Ron, you know, I think this is a sex addiction. Because these were like otherwise spiritual type guys, you know, devout, you know, going to churches and mosques and mosque. But they realized there was something wrong with their lifestyle. That's a mental health issue. Seriously, I would just say this for everybody listening. Like I said, male or female, black, white, whatever. First, be honest with yourself. Realize, hey, if things ain't going well in your life, check it. I mean, even loneliness can be a mental illness. That could cause some problems. You know, you got people who don't want to interact. That could cause some problems. Get that stuff checked out. Get that stuff checked out. Don't be afraid. If you got to go to a spiritual leader, you got to go to an elder. Don't be afraid just to talk with somebody. And I would say, I really would recommend though. I really would recommend at least a licensed professional. Now, I can give you advice on like self-development and masculine self-development. And unfortunately, there's really no or yet any credential programs for that. So I just do what I do. But when it gets deeper than that, when it gets deeper than that, when it's a mental health thing, when you know, hey, you know what, I can't function the way I want to function, get professional help. Get professional help. Don't be afraid. If you got to save up, most people got some type of medical insurance. You know, that's covered. You know, or counseling, something. Sometimes, shit, they got some hotlines out there for people if they're going through some stuff that's free. And you got to train people on those hotlines. Because you got a lot. I mean, when you talk about, you know, suicide, that's a mental health issue. That's a mental health issue. And, you know, they got suicide prevention because you got to think, if somebody get to that point where they don't feel like living, do it. Seriously. I know we get into it, but we get into it, but, you know, and that's something I have to remember sometimes. A lot of times I try to hold back from doing stuff for that reason. Because a lot of people just going through it. So I want y'all to just like really think about it. Be honest with yourself. This your life. Like I told you, one thing I've done in life, as soon as I come across a demon, I face that joint. But everybody ain't me. I've had a certain disposition since I was little. My family told me I was like a stubborn little boy. But see, everybody ain't me. And they might need to talk it out. Talk it out with somebody. Get some mental health assistance. Whatever you got to do. All right? Real talk. I'll tell you, get back with y'all later. All right? Peace and blessings.